I didn't have a university degree. I saw everybody else with nice, big, fancy, big titles. And I was like, I want to become something more than just being a waitress. We were like, okay, let's make baby steps. Let's go to the Netherlands. And I went into finance there. I was always good with numbers, but corporate life was just not for me, unfortunately.
How did the whole Espace journey come along?
That's a very good question. What really stood out to me was that Espace was so shiny. Everybody was working here for years as well. Some of the biggest names were coming up, especially even when I did interviews at other companies. Cool, I want to be part of that as well. It is a very male-dominated industry, so it's cool to be the woman in the office that's going to be smashing it.
On that note, your first deal, how did it come about?
Essentially, I had...
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the First Deal Files. Today we were joined by Samantha. Samantha left behind a career in finance to embark on an exciting journey into Dubai real estate. She did her first deal within 2 months and is here to tell the story. Welcome, Samantha.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, the job you came from.
So originally, I am Dutch. I have a Dutch passport. I grew up in Spain, though, so I was a bit more expat in that sense, always growing up around English people. Went to an English private school as well. And I essentially moved back to the Netherlands after COVID, but then decided that that was not for me, so I moved to Dubai.
And did you have any sales experience or property experience prior to joining the Espace?
I did. Well, mainly when I was growing up in Spain after I finished school. At age 15, I started hospitality. Okay. So I started working there, did that for until I was 22 maybe. And then eventually I decided I wanted to do something else. I didn't have a university degree. I saw everybody else with nice, big, fancy, big titles. And I was like, I want to become something more than just being a waitress. So I decided to go into sales and I went into holiday home resorts, try to sell that because essentially south of Spain is a holiday for everyone, especially for the Brits. So it was a good selling point. Unfortunately, I did well. But unfortunately, because of COVID, that kind of put a stop to it. So I did essentially decide to go back to the Netherlands because Spain was so badly financially not stable. So I decided to go back to my home country and see what that was like. Essentially, we were talking about going to Singapore first, but then I realized you needed a university degree to be able to get into Singapore. So we were like, okay, let's make baby steps. Let's go to the Netherlands. And I went into finance there and decided to study a bit more into finance. I was always good with numbers, but corporate life was just not for me, unfortunately.
What is it that motivated you then to make the jump from obviously finance to real estate? Because it's quite a big difference when it comes to career choices, and definitely the style of work, let's say, is very different.
Yes, there's a lot more structure when it comes to corporate life. You know what you need to do. You wake up at 9, you finish at 5. That's it. You don't need to do anything else other than put numbers into the sheet, make it look good for the shareholders. Here, our clients have a lot more needs. So definitely have to do a lot more multitasking, making sure that you find the right property for your client. And it's difficult. Everybody has a very different life. Everybody has a different lifestyle as well. And going into it, it was intense. It was very intense.
What do you think the biggest change was for you?
The biggest change was having to try and multitask multiple things. The biggest challenge was definitely knowing when the tenant wanted something and also trying to match it with the expectations of my landlords. Because I'm doing rentals, of course. So it's just like they want one thing and then my client wants another thing. And then we got to meet in the middle. So I'm going to be that middleman for them, hopefully.
Compromise is everything in this game. And when it came down to choosing Espace, how did the whole Espace journey come along?
Well, essentially, I knew I wanted to go into real estate. I did my own homework to make sure that I wanted to be with a well-established company. So I did look at other companies, of course. I did have a conversation with other companies. But what really stood out to me was that Espace was so shining. It was so there. Everybody was working here for years as well. And some of the biggest names were coming up, especially even when I did interviews at other companies. In fact, every time I mentioned that I was going to be working or I was actually interviewing with Espace, they kind of looked a little nervous too. So they were never saying anything bad about it. So it was just an easy jump to say I'm going to work for Espace.
And would you say that's something that gave you the confidence to go, right?
Yeah.
And I am making the right choice?
Yeah. In fact, I had one client out the other week on the E50 event,
Mm.
and he used to work for Espace actually. So his name was Haiti, and he mentioned that this was his biggest university lesson for real estate. So in fact, when he said that, it gave me so much more confidence about the fact that I chose for this company too, and that I'm actually going to grow and learn the most out of everything.
On that then, your first few weeks, let's run through that. How did you feel about the first few weeks? Were you excited? Were there times where you thought, what have I got myself into? How's the journey been so far?
No, the first few weeks was super exciting. I did have a lot of fun in the training. It was very, very informative. You were actually quite well done as well. You told me everything about cold calling that I needed to do. So you were very supportive. So that was very helpful. The main thing was that when I started going onto the sales floor, I was like, okay, now where do I start?
Yeah.
That was the main problem.
I think I remember that being quite a big thing. You were a bit like, right, where do I go now? What do I need to start on? And
Like I have all these tools. Now, which one do I use first? So obviously I had a little panic moment,
Yeah.
which is nothing wrong with, I suppose, because every time I see new agents coming through to the floor, I see the same little panic in their eyes. I'm like, it's going to be okay, girl. Everything's going to be just fine. And especially being able to just approach you whenever needed, it was just really helpful to do so.
do you think there was anything in particular that stood out to you on the training program or during the first sort of 3 weeks in terms of either boardroom or just on the floor in general?
Well, the ambience that was really standing out for me the most is the first week that we were there. You could see everybody just running around in the office, making phone calls. Everybody was standing proud, had their chest up. Like nobody was embarrassed to be in this company.
Yeah.
It was a nice feeling. It was a good vibe to be in as well. And they also had the first monthly meeting, and that was exciting. It was exciting. We were all sitting around and we were seeing everybody getting up for their first deals or for their biggest deals, and it just made you more hungry to be able to work here as well. Just saying, cool, I want to be part of that as well.
And is there anything challenging or what's the most challenging thing been for you coming onto the floor?
Coming onto the floor, if I'm going to be brutally honest, is being a woman. It is a very male dominated industry. So, and I had to have a bit of a reality check with myself when I walked onto the floor, knowing that it is male dominated, and it's fine because it makes sense. There needs to be consistency. There needs to be energy. There needs to be the same level of wanting to have that hunger every single day. And as a woman, sometimes we do have a little bit of a difference in, well, you could almost say in a scientific way that we have different hormones. We don't have the same stamina as men do.
Yeah.
So having to deal with that and trying to be just as consistent and actually hit that high performance can be difficult and can be intimidating for a woman. But then essentially, it's cool to be the woman in the office that's going to be smashing it.
Yeah, exactly. And when you are smashing it as well, it does help. So on that note, your first deal
Yeah.
came in the first 2 months. Let's run through start to finish. How did it come about? Where was the client gathered from? Where was the property gathered from?
Essentially, I had my own first listing and I had my first lead. Super exciting. It was great to have to be able to talk to clients. I love picking up the phone and actually asking them what they need, what they want. I actually spoke to the client for about half an hour on the phone, probably unnecessary, but I really clicked with her as well. And in that moment, I did my viewing on my own property and she opened up about everything that she needed for her property. And that was great because it made me see into her life a bit more and made me understand what she really needed too. So I realized that what she was looking for was not actually what I had. So I didn't actually close on my own property. I had to take her to a different community. But she was so happy with the way I was just paying attention to her and putting that extra bit of customer care to it that she wanted to only view with me. So even if it was with another agent, she only kept coming back to me. So that was a nice feeling. And I ended up closing in Dubai Hills with a Lenny. And I was quite happy I managed to do it with a colleague as well because she supported me quite well. There's nothing wrong with saying that your first deal goes with your colleagues.
But I think that is quite a big factor when it comes down to stepping into real estate. It's, yes, you're only going to get so much over the phone. But when you meet them face to face and you can actually get the opportunity to get them to open up,
Yeah.
it makes the world of difference compared to just over text, over the phone. It definitely has an impact when you meet them face to face and you can actually build that relationship. Because like we said, there's so many agents in the market and to stand out, it's not that hard. You
Yeah.
just have to do the bare minimum over and over again. And if that means getting face to face with them, actually breaking down what it is they're looking for, so it makes your job easier.
Yeah, and they unfortunately as well is that many clients, they are a bit nervous when they meet a real estate agent.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we do get a bad rep, but a moment that she met me, she actually gave me a compliment. She was like, "Oh, I really loved working with you. I felt really comfortable doing all these things." And in fact, every time we went to a unit, she was always asking me, "What do you think?" So it felt good from my side as well because you genuinely feel like you're helping people.
Yeah.
So that's good.
So how did it feel once you got that contract signed? What was going through your head?
Um, to be honest, not enough because I would have preferred. I don't know. There's always that little extra that you kind of go, I could have done more. I could have done this. I could have done that, but not in a bad way. I was very happy that I could close my deal. It was good to feel like I'm able to do the job as well. Because in the first week, like you mentioned before, Matt, there's a bunch of questions that are running through your head saying, am I good enough for this job? Am I actually capable of doing this job? And then you close it and you're like, okay, good. And then you follow up with the client. She's super happy. There's nothing wrong. In fact, it only brings a smile to your face at that point. Of course, it's nice to earn, but it's also good to know that you're helping people at the end of the day.
And is there anything that in the role itself you really didn't expect coming into it?
Oh, a bunch of things, to be fair. The shifting of gears, I really thought it was going to be a little bit more structured. That's for sure. Now I've just realized that maybe the chaos that I used to be used to is actually a benefit for me. So there's no issue of trying to shift gears, but yeah, sometimes you do drop a ball, which is fine. The good thing about it is that the structure of Espace is that your colleagues will pick up any balls that you might drop, and at the end of the day, you might still even close a deal instead because they support you in that sense. So
And do you think that's something that's helped you along the way then?
yeah, yeah, definitely. I feel like if I didn't have such a strong team next to me, I would have crumbled a lot faster, I think.
No, it's interesting to hear. And when it comes down to, let's say, you're speaking to someone who's been in the job for 2 weeks, what advice would you give them? Thinking back to your first 2 weeks, everything that's going through your head.
First 2 weeks, when you first walk onto the floor, well, just breathe, first of all, take a breath, and go back to the basics. Make sure that if you're a little bit lost, just double take with the people that you initially started with. And that is go back to the basics. Call people, have a conversation with them. Even if they say no or they say that they're not interested, at the end of the day, it's just a conversation. And eventually, even when you have that conversation and they say no in the beginning, doesn't mean that they're not coming back, because there's been multiple times that I've had a conversation with a landlord as well that he ended up texting me back saying, oh, now it's actually available. Can you please handle it? Because you were actually quite pleasant when I spoke to you last time. And you were quite surprised about it. So you need to have a little bit of confidence in yourself. Make sure that you just have your chest high. Just walk with confidence. Everybody makes mistakes. Just be yourself. And that's the beauty of this job, is that you're allowed to be yourself completely as much as you want to be. Like, you don't have to hide. Like, everybody has their unique feathers, and you can learn from your colleague. You can learn from your clients. You can learn from just walking through the street in Dubai, to be fair. And it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay eventually.
So it's fair to say you've got quite a good career ahead of you. You're already turning heads in terms of the sales side of things. Let's say someone's debating whether to take a role in real estate.
Right.
What would you say to them?
Well, the one thing that I told myself, especially knowing going into this job and being so fresh into the Dubai market, was mainly, if you're not going to be earning, you should be learning.
Yeah.
And for me, it was very much like, I don't feel like I have the knowledge. I came from a career where, I had to know everything all the time. So it really kind of like held me back as well, in a sense, when I started here, because I was always overthinking everything. I was like, I need to know the product. I need to know everything.
Massively.
Yeah, you had a few conversations with me about it, and you were like, you need to stop thinking, girl. But no, if you're not making the money just yet, make sure that you're learning. And that's why I made the choice of going into leasing first before really going into sales, because I wanted to make sure that I know everything and every side of the paper that goes into real estate.
Yeah.
And sure, you can go into sales and you can make more money in the first deal, but also with leasing, you can do so much more. You're going to be a lot quicker. You're going to be doing a lot more, and you're going to get to know your clients a lot better in that sense.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Samantha, for joining us on the first Still Files. And thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next episode.